Y'all, welcome to week 14. As we move more into project number 4, we're going to start at a very similar spot that we have for projects number 1 and 2. And we're going to start with a mood board. And while these might be a little bit different, some different things to consider as we think about a native mobile application, I just wanted to highlight some things that work really well, I think, in some projects from some examples from project number 2. Overall, it was really cool to see how y'all progressed from project number 1 to project number 2. Overall, everybody did a great job for the most part. And I think, you can all be proud of those examples from project number 2, but I just wanted to highlight maybe some that I thought stood out that I think worked well and highlight a little bit about what worked well for each of those. Also want to go over the assignment for this module tonight, and looking forward to seeing what y'all do for your project number 4 mood boards that are focused on native application design. So let's jump in and kind of talk about some of these ones that I thought worked well. So this is an example of modern grand. This is, I think, Natalie's example here. Some of the things that I think worked really well with this example of a mood board was just the uniqueness in the layout. I think from project number 1 to project number 2, y'all really explored different layouts and different ways to kind of showcase the thoughts that you had as the direction of the design that you were taking. And this I thought was just a unique way to do that. We've got some of the kind of the sections highlighted here running down the right hand side. We've got the logo, the photography, the colors, the headline and body, and then the UI examples. And even without that little sidebar, I think you'd still be able to kind of naturally see how this breaks down. So I really liked the layout of an approach to this mood board. Also really liked the elevator pitch that's included in here. So down here in the middle, the Modern Grand offers everything you need to elevate your way of living. And it's an example of mixing the different adjectives and the body copy examples with some of the extra content that's available on this view. And so really interesting way to kind of marry those two things together. Really like the color scheme of this app and this apartment complex design. And Natalie did a really good job of doing that throughout the project number 2, and ultimately having a really great UI design for that, but leveraging this color scheme along the way. And even in this mood board, you can see those design decisions, the color palette being leveraged within this mood board. I think that's just really nicely done. Also love the photography selection here. I think Natalie had mentioned in some of her discussion posts how she really invested in finding the right type of photography, and that showed on the final UI. But even back now here in the mood board, you can see that these photos aren't really overly staged. They're very unique. They have a similar style and approach to all of them. I really love that highlighted view of that palm tree there, and then how that carries into the pool view. Also, you can almost imagine this pool being just below this photo that you can't see. And so that'd be one thing I think would be a good encouragement from project number 2, is especially when you're dealing with maybe case studies or making up work is the wrong word, but case studies or class projects, or maybe it's kind of a portfolio piece or a pet project for yourself. Would be important to make sure you're finding photography or illustrations, or making sure your elements that you're including within your design all feel like they're a part of the same family. And I think this is a good example of, even though these images probably are set at 2 different apartments or 2 different locations, they feel like they're in the same spot. And so I think that was maybe an important takeaway from project number 2, is make sure you are considering the photography you're using, and considering making sure that you're making it feel like it would be all part of that same apartment. And as you go into project number 4, like it's all part of the same app family, or even if you're doing a tourism or travel app, that if you're including photos, they feel like it's all in the same location in the same setting. And that just kind of takes your work above and beyond to make it cohesive, to make it feel like it's a polished finished product. All right, let's go into another example. So this is Dawn's example of Liberty Apartments. And here I really like just the different things that are included on this page. The UI inspiration is really nice there, even though the examples are balance is pretty much taking up a third of the page. I can still see, some of the different examples that are there. Sometimes it's really difficult if your UI examples are really small, especially for the ones that are screenshots from a responsive web or desktop perspective. It's really tough to see some of that content sometimes. And so here Don's kind of cropped into the hero images for us to get a flavor or an understanding of maybe the approach to the UI itself. And one of the important things about documenting your UI inspiration is that you can reference back to that when you actually go into the wireframing and the prototype in the UI design phase. I think it's important to kind of revisit those when you go into those phases, because oftentimes if there's something that you feel like you're really drawn to or inspired by, find a way to recreate it or find a way to take it to the next level based on what you're trying to achieve in your design. And so that UI inspiration is not just, a check the box part of the mood board, but it's for you to find some sites out there, find some applications out there that you're drawn to visually based off your user feedback, based off some of the things you want to include in your design as reference points to go back to whenever you're going into the wireframes or the UI design portion of your site. So if you have some great selections and some things that you're inspired by for your apps for this mood board, the screenshots you're going to take, reference those, go back to those when you're talking about layout and wireframe and UI design, and make sure you're leveraging those. They're in there for a reason. The adjectives here are really nice and easy to see: bold, inviting, honest, and polished. It's all on brand. The font pairing, I think, is really nice here for a desktop or responsive web. We have a really nice heading here, followed by a really simple sans serif font for body. And the photography selection, again, this all kind of feels like it's on location, all kind of feels like it's a part of the same family here in the photography selections. Let's jump into another example. So this is Rose Gold Apartments by Rose Williams. And what I like about this is just the simple, clean organization. And while it's simple and clean, it's still laid out really nice. I can consume it very easily. And that's an important thing to think about even in these mood boards, is who's your consumer of the mood board going to be? It's going to be a potential client, maybe somebody who's not really keen on a design perspective. It's going to be somebody who probably isn't sitting in the classroom with you. If you're in a professional setting, it might be a business partner. And so, there's ways you can be creative and kind of push the envelope. And I think, including a nice illustration background here on the Rose Gold Apartments example is a nice way of adding a little bit of a designer's touch, but then not overcomplicating the mood board by extra distractions that would be on here. And so I think this is just a really good example of an organized, clean mood board here. Good font selections, font examples also of the headlines, and then the body copy there, and then the UI inspiration. Again, we're talking about showcasing those examples. You want to see them, be able to have them large enough so that you can be able to kind of get the gist of the inspiration of the design itself. And we've got some really nice complementary colors here on this mood board. All right, one more, fourth and final one. This is the Isle St. Louis, probably. I know this is located in Paris, so it probably isn't Isle St. Louis. Historic apartments here by Tim Cron. And some of the things that I like about this, I think there's a beautiful color palette. I think, and it works well for the setting and the location of these apartments. That feels very European to me, feels very Parisian. I also love the font selection here. That font itself feels very Art Deco, or very much like I can imagine that on a sign outside of this apartment in Paris. And then it's complemented by a really nice body font that kind of plays into some of the aspects of the font that was chosen for the header area, but isn't too over the top or isn't too distracting. And that kind of real thin line, tall header, interesting header selection is going to really play a part in the design itself. And the organization's really nice and easy to go through and to read. I like the examples of the different ways that the color palette's going to be used. The header, the accents, the background, the accent, the body copy. And again, that just goes, I think, over the top for being able to communicate, especially if you're not in the room, being able to communicate your design, what these selections mean, why they're on this, why they're on the mood board. And so I think just that little extra, I'm going to use this navy color, this rich black color for my header. It's going to be accented by this soft red and green. My background's going to be maybe a little slightly off-white, perhaps, with another accent color in my body copy color. And so I think this is a really nice color palette, great font selections, and really, really nice organization as well. Let's talk about, as you go into project number 4's mood board, make this the best mood board you've done yet. Keep in mind that we're going to be designing for a native mobile app. And if you haven't yet, watch the video that's included in this module about the differences between responsive web and native mobile applications. I would just encourage you to focus on photography and navigation, perhaps, and simple fonts. And again, we talk a little bit about that in the responsive web versus native app here in this module. So let's go over the assignment itself. So think about the type of app that you're going to be designing for. Think about those key features that you'll be including as a part of the feedback you received for your interviews. And that could influence the examples you choose for your UI inspiration, could influence the photography that you choose, even the color palette. If you all got feedback on what types of colors or moods that somebody would have as they experience your app. As far as the instructions goes, so how you lay out your mood board, as you know, is up to you. You can be as creative or structured depending on the brand that you're trying to create for your application. If you're designing for a travel app, perhaps it's very photography, kind of high-styled location photography. If you're designing for entertainment, maybe it's more that immersive experience where you need to focus on categories and filters and things like that. So your mood board at a minimum needs to include your color palette, your typography selection, photo inspirations, 3 minimum UI inspirations. So we're going to up that because we're just focused on native native application design. So 5 minimum UI inspiration examples, and then 4 adjectives that you want to describe the kind of the feeling of your application. So same thing we've been doing. Share that final mood board as a discussion post with 200 to 300 words explaining your thinking behind the mood board for your app. So I'm looking forward to seeing these being your best mood boards yet. And with that, your project number 4 mood boards are due Thursday at 5 p.m. Remember the deadline. Get that in before the start of class there at 5 p.m. on Thursday, April 15th. And looking forward to seeing what y'all do for these. Excited, as these will be your your third and final mood boards here for project number 4. So good luck. Excited to review that work later this week. All right, talk to you later.